next week Saturday at his home village, Motswedi. A memorial service is planned for Wednesday. Today, delegates of the Northwest Provincial Government discussed funeral arrangements at the Gaitso Mangope Royal Palace. Mangope died at the age of 94 at his home on Thursday. Mangope's family says preparations for the memorial service have not yet been finalized. Meanwhile, the provincial government applied for permission with Office of the State President to accord Mangope a provincial funeral. Now, going back to our top story, today is the final day of the ANC NEC lekgotla. From our Pretoria Studios, we're joined by political analyst Lesiba Teffo. A very good afternoon to you, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, it's day 2 of the NEC lekgotla. President Zuma is in attendance, but then we're getting reports that he's no longer going to Liberia. What do we make of this?
Well, right. Yeah, the other bit I might have missed, but I think the question is, what do you make of him not going to Liberia? If you understand and appreciate the history of the African continent, when the situation is as fluid as is, it's best not to leave to leave your country, because coups are made during that time. And I think he's sensitive to that. Neither would I say it's prudent for Ramaphosa to go to Davos. But that notwithstanding, I would say, yes, maybe he says, I cannot leave while my bosses, because now he's a deployee, and then the meeting is on, and they're talking about the programs that must be implemented by the deployees, and he is deployee number 1. At least on the positive side, that could be the reason.
So you suggest he was forced not to go to Liberia, or has it been voluntary in the light of the growing calls for him to step down?
I doubt, given the temperament of McBuffalo and others immediate to him, that would stop him from going there. I believe and trust that it is not within them, and it's not even in their interest to humiliate him. The best way to manage this is the way they suggest to do it. I'm not one of those who really embrace the manner in which the then head of state was removed. Whatever the reasons, but the how part was abominable, offensive and despicable.
And the issue of Zuma's potential recall has been met with mixed feelings within the ANC. On the one hand, there are those who are saying that if he is indeed recalled, I mean, we're going back to the 2008 scenario wherein President Thabo Mbeki was recalled, and we saw a myriad of defections from the ANC. On the one hand, I mean, it's going to cause a whole lot of division within the party. And then on the other hand, they're saying that if he stays on, he's definitely going to cost the ANC votes during the 2019 election. So in your opinion, Professor, how will his recall or stepping down affect the ANC and the country?
Yes, which one is the worst scenario in the circumstances? For the country, his stay is not in the best interest of the organization, the ANC, the principal deployer. His stay is not in the interest of the country. The sooner he leaves, the better for the organization. One, because they can put in place a program of corrections, right? A remedial program that perhaps in the next 16 months could engender some confidence and trust in the people of South Africa, especially the electorate, to a point where they might say perhaps they are still worthy of another chance in government. But again, when it comes to the country, I mean, the harm done by his state. And when we talk about Zuma, we are talking about him as a public face of government. I'm talking here including those who know that their hands have been dipped in blood, that their hands were caught in the cookie jar. Those that know that they will do everything and anything possible to retain him, because wherever he goes, they will have to go with him. For the future doesn't augur well once he leaves office, especially those who gotten their gains illegally, illegitimately, and illicitly.
Some political pundits, Professor, saying that you know, the fall of Zuma started when he made a complaint, or rather when he lodged a complaint, or rather an appeal, rather, I beg your pardon, that about the NPA chief appointment. Now, the president still does have a myriad of other court cases. So, what is your analysis of the future of Zuma, and once he's no longer head of state?
I think he will look back and regret most, especially the last appeal that he lodged on Thursday, on Friday. That was his final, in my view, right? Nail on his own coffin by himself. And that's one. Number two, that Sean Abrahams could equally appeal on the same day or so suggested to me that perhaps the head of state doesn't contemplate leaving the office soon. Perhaps the head of state is not willing to leave the office without a fight. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done what he has done. But maybe he went rather too far. As some would say, maybe he has overreached himself.
You were quoted as saying that the ANC cannot unite without principled unity. What do you mean by this, Prof?
Well, yes. Principled unity, for me, says men and women of integrity will put national interests above self-interest. Men and women of integrity, especially from within the ruling party, will say, whoever will be on my side and with me shall be guided and informed by that seminal document called Through the Eye of the Needle. And the men and women who are deployed by the African National Congress will go and revisit the chapter 10 of the Constitution that speaks to the values and the principles that should imbue public servants. When you say all those are with me and are going to operate based on on what I've said, then you can hope for unity. And indeed, the so-called New Deal purported and espoused by McBuffalo may happen. So I'm laying even the bare minimum for the New Deal to succeed and for unity to succeed. Those that come on board must go through the eye of the needle. Number two, all of them without fail, they must be advised in the next 2 to 3 months to go and read chapter 10, that speaks to the values and the principle that should imbue all public servants. With that, a new cadre can be born. With that, a new South Africa can find itself imbued with immense hope that there in the village, there is a new chief and his indunas, and they seem to be serious and they are worthy, perhaps, of another chance.
And about the rebirth of the ANC, as we've just mentioned, and of the country. Earlier, we saw COSATU President Zuma say that they've been briefed by Cyril Ramaphosa about the transition with the President of the Republic. Are we likely to see a re-strengthening of the alliance between COSATU, SACP and the ANC?
It is in the interest of the ANC to ensure that the alliance continues. But I'm one of those who say, but it's anachronistic because they were allied against apartheid. Now apartheid is no longer there. Go and look at the definition of an alliance, right? Now, having said that, the problem why they are finding them perpetually at conflict and variance is because they have now different ideological orientation, moral rectitude and probity, and self-interest rather than public spiritedness, servant disposition is no longer what inform them in what they do. So it's an amalgamation and a concoction of various organizations that don't seem to share a common view. Can they restore that? Yes, I think it is doable. It's never too late to do the right thing. I can tell you, human beings across the globe follow power where it goes. 5 minutes ago, Mr. Mapatri appeared on AN7. I was watching that. Later on, it was on this platform. He's no longer belligerent and bellicose. He's reticent. When you ask him about Zuma, he doesn't have the words he used to have yesteryear to speak either in defense or threatening, at least brimstone. So I'm saying, yes, some of them will be forced, either by the politics of the stomachs or the politics of expediency, to embrace the new leadership and toe the line that is going to ensure that a new deal, and a new deal indeed, is implemented in the interest of the ANC, by extension, the country.
Professor Teffo, as always, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your insight. That was Professor Lesiba Teffo speaking to us from our Pretoria studio.